Hello, everybody. I'm David Morrison with Prosperion Financial Advisors, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm here with my partner, Nelisha Firestone.
Hi, everybody.
And we're excited to bring a topic to you today that is near and dear to our hearts. 4 great questions to start a conversation in determining whether a partnership fit is a possibility. And I think the reason this is a big topic for us is we used a similar dialogue. We used questions, these exact questions, 2 years ago when I was getting to know Nelisha and looking for a partner. So we're happy to share that with you today. But let's start with a bonus question. This is one that I often open meetings with, and we call it the positive focus. And the question simply is, what's something great in your life today, Nelisha?
Well, living in Colorado, this is a great time of year to live here. The leaves are changing, and so my family and I took the opportunity last weekend to go up to Estes Park, which is one of our favorite spots, and drive through Rocky Mountain National with the kids and see the leaves, and actually caught a sight of a huge elk with the herd, and it was just one of those great family days up in the mountains. So
I bet your girls love that.
they did. It was fun.
That's super. Oh gosh, what's something great with me? I'm so glad you should ask. I'm just back from one of my huge passions in life is fly fishing, and I'm just back from, God bless you, from an Alaska trip. And if you can see it on the screen, I just caught this ginormous rainbow trout. Oh, darn it. You can't see it. Oh, well.
Anytime David has a chance to brag about his fishing skills.
It's a 30-inch rainbow trout, the biggest I've ever caught, and obviously I'm excited. So that's something great in my world. I would encourage you to think about using that very simple question when you start a meeting, whether it's an internal staff type meeting, or it's a way better question to ask if you have clients coming in. Way better to say than, how was the traffic? Did the traffic suck? Or could you find a place to park? Or that kind of thing. It's a much better thing to start off on a positive note.
Kind of helps set the tone.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much negativity on the news anymore, and like you said, Denver traffic is not typically fun, so it's kind of a nice way to reset the tone before you start the meeting.
So that's the bonus question, not even one of our 4. We'll give you a little bit of our background. Nelisha, how did you start in financial services?
Thanks for asking. So I started helping clients with their money back in 2004. So I've been in the business for a long time. I did start at a different firm. I got my appropriate licensing and such there and stayed there for 3 years, starting to learn the business and build my clientele and helping clients any way I could. After 3 years, I decided that this particular firm wasn't necessarily where I wanted to be long term. I was a little bit restricted in how I was able to help my clients. So for myself and my clients, I felt like taking my business independent was the best move for us. So I did that in 2007. Shortly after that, I was invited to contract out of the Coors Credit Union. So I spent much of the next 10 years, excuse me, helping the brewery workers over at the Coors Credit Union Golden transition to retirement, doing things such as pension analysis, Social Security planning, 401k rollover. And for me personally, that was a great time to be in a situation like that. We were just getting ready to experience the recession of 2008. So it really provided some stability for my growing business at that time. And then also personally, I had a young family at home. It provided a lot of flexibility on the home front too. So it was a great fit for 10 years.
But then 2 years ago, you made the decision to join our firm and become a partner.
Yeah, and in the 10 years I was at the credit union, my business grew substantially, but the winds of change started to blow a little bit, and I realized with the changes going on in our industry, there were various reasons which led me to look for a team to join. Number one, it's kind of lonely out there being a solo entrepreneur and having all the pressures on your shoulders. Some of you probably can relate to that. Being the sole decision maker can kind of be a lonely place. Number two, regulatory costs in our industry are extremely expensive. So there was a benefit to me to join, partner with a team to help share in those costs. And then number three, I always think three heads are better than one. I mean, there's a lot to know in our industry, and I felt like being part of a team would better service my clients. So lo and behold, let's call it serendipity, I don't know, but this opportunity came along. We vetted each other for quite some time, about 6 months, and it was a big decision, not only for me, but also for you. And, the questions that we're going to go over today really helped us both evaluate, I think, next steps as we cautiously and consciously went through this process.
Right. And I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
So, and for me, my background, I've got a 30-year background in financial services, starting with banks and trust companies, big investment companies. I did that until about 15 years ago when the bank I was with, and I thought I was a big guy, important, whatever in that firm. They merged and I got laid off. And I went from, you're this top performer, important person, to, we don't need you so much. And it caused me to really reflect, and I had enough of corporate America. And I came to the conclusion that I wanted a situation where I was more in charge of my own fate, that it wouldn't be at the whims of quarterly earnings performance or some boss somewhere remote. And so I went out and did what you guys have done and started my own business, went on the entrepreneurial track and founded my firm then. And it was a great process over time. We grew first very slowly, then through an acquisition and some other things we did, we had some great growth and success. And I found myself in a place a couple of years ago where I was stretched too thin. I wanted to move into kind of a different level of service for our clients and working in ways that we hadn't before, and I needed some help. But I also realized I didn't need another employee. I had a great team at that point, but I really needed a peer and a partner who could work with me to take our company to the next level. And that's when I found Nelisha. Actually, after a 2-year search, you weren't easy to find.
Good things are worth waiting for.
Yeah, the diamond in the rough. But what I want to focus on with the rest of our time is some of the questions that we've learned to ask and some of the questions we actually talked about as we were getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one question is not original. It was actually this guy, Dan Sullivan. Let's see if you can do that. He wrote a little book called The Dan Sullivan Question, Ask It and Transform Anyone's Future. I'll read it to you exactly the way Dan said it, and then I paraphrase it. I've asked this, probably hundreds of times over the years, but Dan's question: if we were having this discussion 3 years from today, and you were looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read it one more time exactly like he does in case anybody's taking notes. If we were having this discussion 3 years from today, and you were looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress? So, Nelisha, I actually have the notes from our conversation that's almost 2 years ago to the day of...
Not surprising.
Yeah, well, I do that. I take copious notes. But do you remember what you said in answer to that question?
Yeah, I do actually, and I do remember the question. And,
you read my notes if you don't. But.
Yeah, cheat sheet. I do remember the question, and it's a great question because it gives you pause. And really, if you can't answer that question, then I don't think you've done enough soul searching to figure out why you're going down this road. So for me, the answer to that question was really I didn't want to look back 3 years and have regretted my decision because it was a big leap of faith for both of us. It meant a lot of change, and I was going from just, by myself with one assistant to a team and multiple personalities and, dynamics at play there. So not to have regretted my decision and also on a personal front to not lose any of my autonomy in this move.
Yeah. When I asked you that, you talked about you want to be with a team you like, have good working dynamics, know you'd made the right decision, like you said, and yeah, you wanted to work with sort of a kind of a different level of clients.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I ask that question? And again, I generally don't do it in kind of as wordy a way as Dan does, but I typically say, so if we were having coffee 3 years from today, what has to happen for you to be happy with your progress? And when I ask the question, you can watch somebody and visually they'll usually kind of look up and to the right. And when somebody does that, you know that their brain is accessing the future, that they are imagining and thinking through a future possibility. So, and why do I ask that question? Well, first, I want to know where somebody wants to go with things, and that's a very basic thing. Obviously, if you're getting a partner, Nelisha, if you had said, "Yeah, 3 years from now, I think I want to be fully retired and just having fun with your daughters and traveling the world," or something like that. Well, it's a great answer, but it's not the answer that I need in looking for a partner. I needed to know where somebody wanted to be in their professional life, in your professional life, to see is they're going to be a good fit. You look for things like you said, if somebody really hasn't thought about the future, well, how great a partner is that going to be when they're so focused on their present that they can't get out of that and think about what's to come? You look for personal issues, and I do like the way Dan says progress in your personal or professional life, and that's great because it's a clue to who they are as a person. And when you're in a partnership, you're not just partners with their work persona, you're partners with their whole life. And if somebody's got a personal life that's spiraling out of control or super demanding or whatever, you need to know that going in. So let's see.
Usually when you are looking to partner, there's a pain point, as David said. I mean, he had his set of pain points, I had my set of pain points. So this question gets at, what would be your best case scenario in partnering and what would be your worst case scenario? And you need to be able to think through that spectrum, I think, as you start to go down this road.
Certainly. Well, so the question again, words to the effect of, if we were here 3 years from today, and that 3-year period is important, it's not like 6 weeks from now or a month from now with a very short term, but it's also not like 47 years from now. So if we were here 3 years from today, what has to happen between now and then for you to be happy with your progress? So that's the first great question. Second is a corollary, and I usually ask these things right in succession. So Nelisha, what makes you jump out of bed in the morning? Do you remember me asking you that?
I do, and in all sincerity, I hate that question because I love to sleep, and as I'm sure many of you do, nothing really makes me jump out of bed. But I do believe that even though maybe a flight to Hawaii might get me out of bed, we all like to have purpose in our lives, and that's what keeps us going, putting one step in front of the other. And what really keeps me going is just knowing that I'm making a small difference in the lives of others one by one. So that's what we do every day in this office. We try to help people address whatever needs come to our door in the best way possible and give them the best advice that we can to hopefully make an impact for them.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you said a couple of years ago when I asked you this. You said you wanted to help and make an impact and help solve people's problems, their financial problems. So this question, like Nelisha said, really goes to somebody's big why. And you've probably heard that. What's your why? Like your basic motivation in life and for your work and for your business. And it's obviously super important to understand what's the motivating factor. It can be something like you said, help others. I've asked that question, and people have just been real flat out and said, "Oh, it's all about making money. I want to make X dollars this year. I want to build a business that has this much revenue, and I want to sell that business, da da da, or whatever." And those are all fine answers. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's important to know, particularly going into a partnership. So, what is their primary motivation? What is their why? Here, you're also looking. Some red flags would be they couldn't really answer the question. I don't know. I get out of bed because I got to go to the bathroom, or the dog barks, or whatever, and that they haven't really thought about what is that motivation. Because obviously, also, you want to find somebody who is self-motivated, intrinsically motivated, rather than somebody who has to be pushed along to.
And like-minded as it comes to the business. So you want a partner that has the same sort of conviction for whatever it is type of business that you have.
Right. So that's the second question. What makes you jump up out of bed in the morning? The third sounds kind of like that, but a little different emphasis, I think you'll see. It's what keeps you up at night, and it really speaks to what do you worry about? And I remember asking you this question. What was that like? What was that like for you when I asked you what keeps you up at night?
It didn't throw me off. I expected some pretty deep thoughts with David kind of questions. But I think I explained that. I mean, personally, I'm a pretty laid back person. I don't sweat the small stuff too much. Usually, what keeps me up at night, if at all, are things of a personal nature. Like, for instance, we lost our dog recently, which has been a little traumatic for our family. So I've lost a few hours of sleep over that. But usually, it's not going to be anything work related.
Yeah. I've got your notes here. You said not much keeps you up at night, that you're pretty laid back. And this question really gets to how somebody's outlook on the world. And I've heard many answers on this. Some are business concern. Well, I'm really worried because we need funding for this venture. We're not quite there yet. We've got something like that. Or in the financial world, we hear people, "Oh gosh, I'm worried about when's the next big crash going to come? What are we going to do about a recession, and how do we get through that?" Things like that. You hear people's personal stuff, and any of that actually has value in understanding who somebody is. It helps you understand what's their worldview. And I loved that in our first conversation, you described yourself as laid back. Because, for me, I wasn't looking for a partner who's like super high stress, pushing all the time, not losing sleep all the time, worried about stuff. That would wear me out. So, and I've got enough worries of my own, things that are on my mind. So it's a question that gets to outlook on the world, what's on their mind. But then I guess the other thing is you wouldn't want somebody who says, "Oh, I never worry about anything. I never really think about anything. I just live life as it comes to me." Well, that would be a clue too about the kind of person you're working with.
And I would add to that, when you're looking for a business partner, I kind of approached it. I've been married for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I kind of look at it as sort of a marriage as well. It's a business marriage. And in my personal marriage, my husband and I have a lot of similarities, but we also have some differences that benefit us as a whole, right? Because you don't want someone that's completely like you. And I think what that question gets at is really at, yes, you're skilled, yes, you can do the job, but what is your personality like? And is it going to be a good fit? Because if you have a small office like us, we have 6 people in our office, personalities can change the dynamics. And so you want to make sure that you're adding the right type of personality to fit in with the others so that it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. In most startup ventures, it's not going to be a big, huge who uses the bus analogy. You got to get people in the right seats on the bus. But so that's the third question. What keeps you up at night? The fourth is one of my favorite questions, well, let me just tell you what it is. If you were going to find a partner, an ideal partner, where you got everything you wanted to out of that partnership situation, what would you want to get? And so let me say it again. If you were going to find, actually, I should say, an ideal partnership where you got everything you wanted to out of that partnership, what would you want to get? And it's a little clunky question, but it's intentionally clunky because the first part of it, if you were to find a partner, an ideal partner, where you got everything you wanted to from that partnership, and I always pause right then. And what you're doing is giving somebody, you'll see them again, look up and to the right. You're giving somebody the possibility that, wow, I could have an ideal partner. Think about that. And so they will start to mentally build a list of, well, I'd want this and this and this and this. And you've been married 10 years. I've been married to a very patient woman for 32 years. But one of the things I've learned in relationships is everybody has expectations in relationships, and I have 0% chance of meeting those expectations unless I know what they are. And so this question really gets towards somebody's expectations in a partnership, in a relationship. And you've got your own list. And I would encourage you, actually, before you have conversations like this, write your own list down. Answer that question for yourself. If you were going to have the ideal partnership where you got everything you wanted to from that partnership that you wanted, what would you want to get? And, often I'll ask this in the context of people who we are thinking about having a client relationship with. And often I'll get stories. And some will be stories about, yep, I want trust in a relationship. I want this sort of advice, and I want confidence, and these sorts of things that people want out of a relationship, like we have as a financial advisor. But I'll also get stories about what they don't want. And those are maybe even more important than the to-do list, than the I want to have list. And it helps you understand what are their expectations.
Yeah, and I would add, I know y'all all did this, before you met your mate and you were dating, you all had your list of what traits were most important in a partner, a personal partner. Well, it's not much different professionally. And if you go back to that dating list and you look at your husband now, you probably didn't get everything on your list, but there are more things. So if you prioritize what's most important, like for instance, in our communication when we were exploring this with each other, one of David's big things was, I want to make sure that, whoever I partner with always has my back. That was consistently a message that I got from him. And so I knew that was definitely a top priority for him because, as partners, you're not always going to agree. You're going to disagree. It's a human relationship. And how you handle those disagreements and how you get past conflict really is important. So go back to that list, write down your wish list, but make sure that you prioritize them from most important to least important. And if you can find in a partner those things that are most important to you, such as, somebody who always has your back, then, you're taking another step forward.
Yeah, I have no idea how I made it through my wife's first screening, but I somehow lucked out and caught her on an easy.
Caught her in a weak moment.
Yeah. So I guess the other thing I'd add, there's a communication tool that I've learned to use called expanding and clarifying questions. So you hear something interesting when you ask any of these 4 questions, And you can simply ask expanding and clarifying questions, things like, well, really, tell me more about that. Or what was that like for you? Or what was the impact? Or what did you learn from that? Questions like that can add color and more meaning to somebody's maybe short response. Well, I know I need a relationship where trust is, I could totally trust somebody. And if they leave it there and you don't get a story with that, that would be an appropriate question, appropriate place to ask. So tell me more about that, or what makes you say that you really want trust in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of obvious, it might sound obvious. I think I know why I want trust in a relationship, but I don't know what that is to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ask that clarifying or expanding question, I'm going to get your story, and that story is an important part of who you are and helps me evaluate, is this somebody I really want to partner with? So to review, let me go, let me actually mention first, we wrote a white paper about this that is on the 4Gen Now website. It's on our website. You'll get a link to pull up this white paper. It discusses all these things plus a whole lot more about evaluating some other questions, these questions plus some others. And hopefully that'll be a valuable resource to you. But let me go back over the 4 questions. The first is this Dan Sullivan question, and that is, if we were here 3 years from today, what has to happen personally and professionally for you to be happy with your progress? And then second is, what makes you jump out of bed in the morning? Third, what keeps you up at night? And then the last one, and I put this in a partnership context, but you can put this in any context at all. If you were to be in the ideal partnership relationship where you got exactly what you wanted out of it, what would you want to get? And those 4 questions, plus our bonus, what's something great, I think can be very valuable to you as they've been very valuable to us. So we'd be more than happy. I wish we could have taken questions on our webinar today. Unfortunately, the technology didn't allow for that. But if we can be a resource to you, please feel free to reach out. You can see our website, prosperion.us, prosperion.us.
We'll also be at the conference, so we'd love to meet any of you face to face if you get a chance and see us walking around. Please come up and introduce yourselves.
Absolutely, and hopefully our smart technical people can figure out a way to get our emails on this webinar as well. So thanks very much for joining us today. We appreciate it, and best wishes in your partnership endeavors.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.